as we
allow us to journey into these altered states.
It really whacked me psyche though, big time.
If you just sit reading books, it's the shadow because you're not going to be in your body.
Welcome to Creating Space, bringing people together. Real conversations with real people, telling stories and sharing our gifts right here in the heart of Liverpool, inspiring new ideas, education and co-creation.
choose a challenge that lights you up and is going to make a difference in the world.
Creating Space.
Sponsored by the Scouts Guru app.
Welcome to Creating Space. My name is Martin Bone and this is episode 9. Got a really interesting guy in the studio today and personal friend of mine, Trevor Hamlett. Trevor is an energy healer. He uses traditional sound healing tools and electronic equipment. In his past, Trevor's been a professional photographer and a video producer. He is well travelled, from the rainforest of the Amazon to Africa, the pyramids of Giza and all around Asia. He's got a great story to tell and has some very interesting concepts about vibration, energy and frequency. We personally met under some very weird and wonderful circumstances in 2014 and have been great friends ever since. I've been really looking forward to this one. So get comfy, guys. Put the kettle on, get your tea and biscuits ready and enjoy. Trevor, welcome to Creating Space. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Martin. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
It's, I've really been looking forward to this conversation. I remember when I started, really thinking about doing some podcasts here in Liverpool and putting it on the app that I've just developed. And I wrote a list of names and you were on the top 10. We've got a great relationship and we met under some very lovely circumstances in 2014. So I'm looking forward to getting into that in the conversation today. But, we're sitting here today and we're actually on lockdown. We're in the middle of this pandemic. And so how are you getting on at the moment? What's coming up for you and, in this current situation?
Well, I'm feeling pretty calm and collected about it. One thing that has come to the surface really is that a lot of people seem to be in fear. And one of the main things that we need is psychologically, our need for certainty is one of our 6 basic needs. So a lot of people have got a lot of uncertainty at the moment. So it's triggering a lot of people. And so for myself, I'm not going down that road at all, really. I just feel quite calm. And I think doing the work that I've done over the past few years has given me another perspective. Mm-hmm. And again, I've learned that what you focus on is what you feel. So I'm tending not to look at much of the sensational drama and all the things that's going out there. So yeah, it's.
It is a very interesting time for a lot of people, isn't it? We're all under some sort of house arrest, and it's, for me, I see it as a wonderful opportunity. We're being starved of a lot of extremities, aren't we? I think people tend to go out into the world and use all different forms of life to almost distract themselves away from themselves. And this is a massive opportunity where, everything's closed, isn't it? All the restaurants, all the bars, all the gyms, there's a lot of things that are closed. And so it is a time to somewhat take a look at ourselves, and there is a lot of fear because, it is uncertain times, isn't it? And it's driving us to really start to actually take a look at maybe the things we are afraid. I think on a deeper level, this uncertainty that you're speaking about is, this not knowing it. People are really just afraid of death, because it's such a taboo subject nowadays. And so, yeah, it's a really, really interesting time. And for anyone tuning in today, thank you for listening. To take a look at our fears, because but fear's a natural. It's actually a natural instinct, isn't it? It's okay to have fear, but it gives us an opportunity, I suppose, to look at really what's presenting itself in these current situations. But I'm sure you've had some fears in the past. How do you feel like you've transcended your fears then over the last few years?
It's been difficult. It's a process, and it's been probably a 7-8 year intensive journey now. And anybody that says spiritual awakening is fun and it's butterflies and angels, it isn't for a lot of people. And really, what you're saying there about people being distracted, I think it's very much, if you look at the model of meditation where people are distracted by the mind, when you start stripping away that, and when they start getting into a place of mindfulness and peacefulness, and that it's what they're left with. And that's pretty much what's happening now. People, when they switch their Netflix off and they stop going to the gym, they stop doing the yoga, and they stop, going to the town and doing all the things that they justify as being useful in their life, the result is that they've probably spent more time on their own now, or more time with a family than they have done ever. And it's not just time with your family and yourself, but it's time which has also got an additional pressure, not just the uncertainty, but there's the pandemic of the fear that's pressed in. So it's almost like everything's been put into this catalyst into the same pot, and people are here having to deal with it, and also deal with it without any tools. And when you ask me about how I'm coping with what I'm doing, is that because I've got tools that I can rely on. And one of the things that has been really useful, if we look at positive out of this situation, is that I've been able to say, well, actually, are my tools working? Because you don't know. It's like, you don't know if you can swim until you fall overboard. And it's like, okay, I've noticed everybody else is panicking and I'm not panicking as much as what I used to do, or not even panicking. So that is it's a way of measuring where you're at the moment. And so I think that's an interesting thing that's happening. And also it's unknown territory, and the speed in which it's happening. And then the thing that's really I've noticed is how sheeple people are. You see the how people just trust what other people tell them, and they're easily influenced by groups of other people. And I think now is the time where people can sit and go, okay, I've got to start thinking for myself. And for some people, that's a scary prospect, having to go, God, who am I without all my toys? Who am I without all my distractions? And essentially, the who you are without all that is who you are at the being level. And that is the most important part of your life anyway, because that particular part of you is influencing every other aspect of your life. So this is a time to sit with yourself and to recognize them patterns, them behaviors, them fears, and to also recognize the addictions that you've got. And I noticed that a lot of people now are leaning, they've switched their addictions. They're leaning on Instagram, they're leaning on Facebook, they're leaning on social media, on box sets of DVDs, They're
just filling that void at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah. But then conversely, there's people that I've noticed there's so much creativity coming out of people, and people are playing again. Yeah. Adults are playing, they're just like kids. And, somebody introduced me to TikTok. I've been looking at that, and it's just a great example of people's creativity and their ability to just go, well, this is my excuse now to actually be a bit silly and to. So that's the positive side of it.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a special time for a lot of people, and almost we're all in the same boat, aren't we? And it's maybe at sort of different stages in the boat, but it feels like we've just sort of come off the wheel, the hamster wheel. And then for us to sit and be, you spoke about a being level there, which I'm really interested to start diving into shortly. But to sit and be, I feel as if certainly, in these modern times, we're losing certain virtues, and these virtues of being and patience and longing, because everything's just so instant nowadays, isn't it? And to have this opportunity, and it may be the only opportunity that has ever presented itself, at this time, for us to actually just be with ourselves, really observe what's rising up in our experience, and to take a lot of positives out of these situations for basically personal growth, and for development of oneself. And, you know, we're always, for me, it can't just be double standards. You know, we can't just be happy when things are going our way and unhappy when things aren't going in our way. You know, when we sort of look at both sides of the coin and accept all aspects of life, and then just sort of meet in that middle. You know, we meet in the middle, we accept all, you know, facets of life and how things unfold for us. And I feel as if, for one, if you know, we do truly anchor this experience and take a look at what's presenting itself, we can truly then make some better choices as I suppose things start to relax a little bit more, moving back into the world. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And it's and I see you know, you're now in Liverpool. You've moved to West Kirby. How's life in West Kirby for you?
It's really nice, but having said that, you know, I moved just to the point of lockdown, so it's it's kind of quiet, but it is beautiful, and it's just a nice energy being next to the sea as well, and I've got a great space to work. I've got a studio to work with, and it's accessible. I'm in the city in 20 minutes. You know, the airport's not too far away, and anything that I need is on the doorstep. And Wales and the countryside is just, you know, it was a fantastic beach a few minutes from here, and it's just awesome. So it's really good. It's really nice.
It's got a bit of a different energy, West Kirby, to like Liverpool, hasn't it? Yeah. I know you were in Liverpool. You've been here about 6 months now, and you were in Liverpool for a while. And then, you know, you just decided to create a bit of space, you know, because it can be quite fast. And, you know, and I know you know, especially with the energy work that you do, and you're incredibly sensitive as well. Especially, you know, I know your partner, she's, you know, into very much the same world as you are. And so it can be that influence of a fast-paced life, you know, may have been just a little bit too much. And I know you've come to West Kirby, and you feel, and I can sense that you're a lot more settled here, and it is a little bit quieter, it is a little bit more slower. There's a steady pace here, and there's some, you know, you're literally on the beach, and it's just it's a lovely place to be. So, you know, it's I remember lovely childhood days here in West Kirby, walking over to Hilbury Island many times with my nan and granddad and the family, and it's just got a lovely way about it here. And, you know, we're just sort of really moving into the summertime, aren't we? The weather's amazing. So I think this is a bit of a saving grace, isn't it, as well? You know, the fact that the sun's shining, and a lot of people can actually, you know, get in the garden, you know, get creative. You know, the sunshine anyway is great for everyone, isn't it? You know what I mean? But I think it'd be a different kettle of fish if we were moving into like October, you know, November, you know, the dark nights, you know, the cold weather. It'd be a different kettle of fish. So, you know, great. You're in West Kirby. You know, you're in Liverpool. You've been here for 6 months. So what's the nature of your work, and how have you been weaving what you do here in the heart of Liverpool?
Well, it's kind of strange because it's the nature of my work seems to be constantly changing. I just seem to be, you know, what am I doing? How am I doing it? You know, it's not like I can even get a rule book. I mean, the energy work has come in over the last 6 years, and I've decided to own it, so to speak, and go, okay, I accept this. This is part of what I'm doing, and seeing where it happens. So, you know, I want to be able to. My job is to try and inspire people and to introduce them to this energy that I've been introduced to, without all the dogma and all the belief systems. Just it's almost like science meets spirituality. So I'm looking for now a vehicle to be able to do that, and to be able to get that out to many people. So that's where I'm at the moment. And, you know, the response I've had from Liverpool has been amazing. And, you know, if it weren't for knowing you, I wouldn't have even come to Liverpool. Mm-hmm. So it's funny how everything connects in one way or another. We're all here to help and inspire each other. And times like this and what's going to happen after this has settled down to a degree, I think people are going to start realizing that there's more to the work that we do, myself and yourself and other people out there that are working with these new frequencies, so to speak, that it's actually useful. Mm-hmm. And at the basic level, they really help you to deal with stressful situations, mm-hmm. and to understand yourself and to be a better person to yourself and to others. And, you know, and at the other end of it, there's all sorts of magical things that are happening. This has given me time to actually sit down and consolidate and look and go, okay, what's useful here? What do I want to do? What is the goal? And, you know, and it's not like I'm 22, I'm 52 now, and it's gone by really quickly. And you're thinking, okay, now, you know, now's the time. Because for a lot of people, and whatever you do, there's a tendency to go, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I don't know enough. So, you know, I've worked in lots of different places all over the world, and it's one of the common things that people have. They don't love themselves. They're not good enough. They're always trying to prove themselves, and they're compensating for it. And so when I've recognised these patterns,
a lot of people don't ask these questions, though, Trevor, do they? You know, as we were coming back to what we were talking about before, there's just so many distractions nowadays that really, you know, to actually, you know, look in the mirror and, as you said there before, to own it. You know, and not many people want to take a look in the mirror. Not many people know how to take a look in the mirror, really. And I think, you know, what's important is to, we're talking about living an examined life. You know, what is it that we want to do in the world? What inspires us? What are our values? You know, what's driving our purpose, and how am I going to get there? And why do I want to do it? And these are big questions to consider, you know, and it sounds like, you know, things are always changing for you, but really your intention is to serve, you know, is to serve in the greater good and to explore your natural gifts and talents and all your direct experience over, you know, the last, 5-6 years in really shining a light on other people's lives and, you know, holding space and creating a space for a better world, really.
I think the journey, if I put it down into a sentence now, for me, is about being authentic. And the next level authenticity for me is the part that some of the rest of me has been avoiding, and that is to just completely show who I am, as in, my vulnerabilities, my honesty, and because I realized one thing that is so important is people respond to authenticity. And we make mistakes. None of us are perfect. But to go, that was my ego there, or that was a fear there, whatever it was. And if people want to share that journey with me, which I'm going to start putting videos out and things, then it's not a journey from my ego. It's a journey to show them that, you know what, I'm just the same as you. And I've learned these tools, and we're all teaching each other. And I think if people were more authentic, I think their relationships would be better. But to become authentic, you have to go through the purging, the realization of your fears, of whatever it is that's been holding you back. And that's your programming as a child, the things that are encoded into your DNA, your environment. There's so much information, and your influences. Because, somebody once said that 95% of your decisions are probably made by your fears, because you're not even aware of them.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I think there's a massive fear of actually, I think, being authentic. I think people think that being authentic, there's a fear that it's actually, not good enough, or you're not going to be this shining light to the world, you know what I mean? And so everyone's just wearing masks, aren't they? And these masks, we put on masks to show the world's, to be liked, really, isn't it? You're talking about these wounds, these deep-rooted, patterns within ourselves, which, do come from the likes of childhood, our childhood trauma, our experiences, through our life that take us into that place of lack, and we're constantly being bombarded by even the media subconsciously that you're not good enough, you don't look good enough, nobody loves you, and so we feel like we've got to dress up, we feel like we've got to put these masks on to present ourselves in the world. I tell, especially when I'm teaching meditation, it's them stories of when we all go on a first date, and we put our best outfits on, don't we? You know what I mean? We put our best clothes on, and we get our hair cut, and and we tell our date the best things about ourselves, and then a few months down the line, if you end up getting together, And then that shadow, you know, the authentic side comes out, or the darker side. You know, we're all a mixture of light and dark, aren't we? And then, you know, he goes, well, who are you? And you didn't show me that on the first date, you know. And I think this authenticity is a complete mix of, your light and shadow. You're showing yourself to the world. It's raw, it's real. And but it's welcome, isn't it? You know, we have to welcome our authenticity. You know, we have to welcome this original sense of self, but also give ourselves a pass out and forgive ourselves for maybe when we have wore a mask, or we have pacified the world, or we have self-sacrificed. So it's this is a really, I mean, so, you know, we're starting to get into the nitty-gritty bits and bobs of, you know, what we could call human behaviour. Why do people behave the way they do? You know, what are the motivations behind your actions? And unfortunately, most people unconsciously are just trying to promote self-image. That comes from a deep-rooted sense of fear, a deep-rooted sense of lack, you know, where these wounds are, you know, sit in the basement of our psyche and present themselves in our adult life. And, you know, the work that we both do is to really create awareness around this stuff, and, you know, and to take, again, a look in the mirror, take ownership over it, because most people neatly place, you know, their stuff onto other people, and, you know, that would be called a projection, or they're always pointing the finger elsewhere. It was your fault, and you know, always laying the blame. But when we truly look in the mirror, take ownership, and come home to this authentic self, it's not so bad after all, is it?
No, it's not. And, you know, I've become more authentic over the last few years, and I'm pretty much, what you see is what you get. But then I'm still finding parts within myself where I'll go, oh, I'm restless today. Oh, I'm feeling like this today. And I'm recognizing that part, whereby I don't think it's me. It's a part of me. Yeah. It's a part of my old programming. So, yeah, I think that ability to be able to be objective about your own behavior, your own thoughts, is something that's invaluable, really. When
it's a long-term project, isn't it?
Yeah, you are a long-term project. Yeah. And one of the things that I'm aware of is that when you're in a position of being a healing channel, a guide, I prefer to use the word guide, or in a position where you're saying to people, well, look, you know, I can teach you how to feel better about yourself, then it's almost, it doesn't give you a chance to be off balance. You're almost like, you know, you're always on show. You know, you can't make a mistake because, hey, you're the teacher, you know, and you should know all this. You shouldn't make a mistake. And it's such a responsibility, because you can spend years having people, clients following you and whatever, and then you do one. You see it on celebrities all the time. You do one thing. It could be a post on Twitter. It could be anything, and suddenly they realize, oh, it's all wiped out.
Yeah, you're not good enough.
Yeah, and the authenticity, I think, is about saying, you know what, today I feel shit. Yeah. Today I'm having a bad day. Today I'm feeling angry. And then, you know, this is normal. Yeah. But also then having tools to be able to go, well, because of the way I'm feeling, I think it's because of this, and I'm going to investigate and I'm going to clear it. So there's a two-sided thing to that. People can look at it and go, yeah, he's the same as us, and I respect, you know. And then there's other people going, well, you know, he's supposed to know all this stuff, and why is he struggling? Yeah. But that's, you know, I don't think you can please everyone.
No, you can't please everyone, and it's the nature of the competitive mind. You know what I mean? You know, people like to see other people fail because it gives them a sense of self. It gives them a sense of, oh, well, you know, I'm better than you. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, you know, in the West, I like to say, you know, and I'm sure it happens all over the world, but we've been conditioned to compete, haven't we? You know what I mean? To look at our fellow man and you know, and there's these mantras in the world like, you know, be number one, or time is money, and you know, be first and be the winner and all this kind of stuff, and it really hasn't got us anywhere. You know, I feel as if as a collective, as a society, you know, we've probably never been so comfortable, but we've probably never been so sick, especially psychologically.
It's,
you know, nowadays.
I look at patterns, and if you look at quantum physics, it's called the They say that this universe is a fractal process, and that basically means that from the microcosm to the macrocosm, there's patterns, and there's repetition, and it's the same, in us. We have the same struggles of, the dark and the light, and realization and being uncomfortably comfortable. It's like, well, if you really want to achieve something, you've got to go out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But then if you extend that out to your society, it's exactly the same. You extend that out to the country and extend that out to the world. There's a shared consciousness. And when people say, oh, well, when this pandemic is over, we're going to, I'm going to really appreciate life. I'm going to connect with friends. No, what's going to happen is they're going to go back to their old patterns because unless they're reinforced. For example, I was in Ethiopia and I went out there twice a couple of years ago to do some work with charity work, and I was making a video for some of the people out there, and I saw some pretty upsetting things. People living on rubbish tips and literally living on rubbish tips, and then I took some photographs of some kids, and the next 2 days later, all them kids that I took photographs, a pastor died basically because of a disaster on one of the rubbish tips. And you realize how fragile life is, but you realize that they've got nothing over there, and that's how most of the world lives. So the person who was running the charity, I said, oh man, this has changed me. He said 5-6 days, you'll be back to your old self, your third world problems. There's no batteries in the remote control for the TV, and they've got no sparkling water, they've only got still water in the garage, and complaining about all this. And sure enough, you come back and you're on fire, but then you come to this reality. It's a different world. And then you get back into your old problems, your own, and also these things called anchors, neurological triggers, that your environment triggers these anchors in you. So, and that's I've just given up sugar and coffee, and I'm okay. But then I get to a certain point, like I go to a garage, and I can feel the trigger happening. Yeah, and it's like it's being conscious, being aware of these triggers. So I think once this settles down further from what it is now, we will get back into our old. There'll be a spike. Everybody will start enjoying themselves and connecting and catching up, and then if they're not careful, there'll be some people that'll go back to the old patterns, and there'll be other people that have gone. They'll be in this. I'll call it a middle ground. Call it between two islands.
Level of confusion.
Well, it's that. I think it's cognitive dissonance where things don't kind of gel anymore.
Yeah.
And they'll get to a point where they'll go back to the old patterns, but something will have changed and gone, this ain't right. This ain't what my life's about.
Yeah.
And then that's the point where you can feel a little bit lonely, where you need to stretch out, need to reach out to people who've gone through it and gone, okay, I know where you're at. Because it's when you're in that in between two islands, you're literally trying to swim away from your old one, be it a relationship, a job, habits, or whatever it is. You get so far and then you'll just swim back again because fear gets too much and you go, oh, I just got to go back. And there's a slight relief, but then it builds up again and I've got to swim away. And eventually one day you'll swim so far that you're too far away to go back.
Yeah.
You could have just left a marriage or left a relationship or whatever that is. And then this is the point where you kind of need faith, where you just keep swimming and keep swimming and keep swimming until the next island appears, and that's where your tribe is.
And that's where you create a new life. Or I think we've got to not be afraid of becoming a new person, or as such. You know what I mean? We're swimming to these new islands, and it's we're going from an old paradigm to a new paradigm. It's like an upgrade, isn't it? And within that process, you're talking about relationships there. We've got to not be afraid of letting people go, have we? And we've got to trust that actually we're going to meet new people. I think there's also got to be an open mind and a willingness to actually understand that meeting new people is exciting. Meeting new people is just a part of life. It's a part of nature. And some people just have this old paradigm, and it's, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and a leopard never changes its spots. But really, as you said, there's big words there: trust, faith. That actually, there's a middle bit in the middle where, it is, as you said, cognitive dissonance. There's confusion, denial, fear, and then it's just pushing on. And then, you know, somewhere down the line, life does change, doesn't it? You're learning a new language. You know, you've moved into a new paradigm. You've had an upgrade, and all of a sudden, your energy, and we're going to start talking about frequency and energy, starts to attract a similar type of person, doesn't it? You know, and you'd attract these people to you. And you know, and then it's only when you look back, you know, 2, 3 years, 4 years, and you go, wow, I am actually a different person. And it's having the courage, from my perspective, to not really worry about what other people are thinking, because people, you know, they'll hit you with that one. You've changed. And it's like, well, actually, yeah, I have changed. And I quite like who I have become. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, we're natural creators, aren't we? We're natural explorers, and having the opportunity to explore your future and move into it from a level of fearlessness. And who do you want to become? You know, we are the master of our own creator. You know, unfortunately, not many people exercise what, you know, who do you want to be? Where do you want to go? What do you want to achieve? What's your life driven by? You know, when we really understand that we are the architect of our own design, and we can create, we are the holy creator, and we can, you know, there's a level of creating your life, and also there's a level of letting life be as it is and surrendering to what is as well. I like there's a fine line between making things happen and letting things happen. And I think there's
if you take some psychedelics or, you know, plant medicines or something like that, you know, nothing's changed, but you're in the same space and suddenly you feel amazing. You know, you're just in a place of, wow, I love everything, the flowers, everything, you know? It's not something I do anymore, but I do crave for that connection. And what that connection is, the fact that your resistance, that's your ego and your fears, have dropped away. So you've basically put them on the shelf, you bypass them, and you experience what it's like to be in that moment. And so a lot of the time, we are constantly searching for that. We're constantly going, well, when I get this, I'm going to be happy. When I achieve this. And I'm doing it myself now, thinking, well, yeah, when I get my own big house and I've got a YouTube presence and I'm traveling around and I'm doing these big workshops and I'm feeling like I'm making a massive difference to people's life, then I'm going to be happy. But that's not true.
Even them little chocolate bars come in at this petrol station. It's a little bit of like fake love, isn't it? You know what I mean? Yes. It's a little hit. It's the hit of like, I'm loved. I'm okay for the moment. You know what I mean? But these, you know, this pleasure cycle, it's impermanent, isn't it? You know, these things pass away. And I suppose, you know, talking about now the work that we embody personally and we deliver, you know, collectively to you know, to the public, is that, you know, we need a container which is constantly helping us to understand our ego and transcend our ego, you know, transcend our fears, because inevitably we're either in fear or love, aren't we? There's a fork in the roads, and what direction are we taking? And so, yeah, it's really, really interesting stuff. So let's take this back then, because, you know, we're very much just batting and balling here, and we're talking about human behaviour. And so far, I've thoroughly enjoyed what we're talking about, and I hope anyone tuning in today, you know, understands what we're talking about and just embodies our words, and learns how to integrate some of the things, you know, because from our perspective, you know, both Trevor and I have been on a massive journey of self-development, of integration, resolving our stuff, understanding our ego, you know, and moving towards this authentic level of beingness. But it takes time, it takes work, you know, and it takes effort. So we'll take this back then, Trev, because must have been a moment for you where all this started to, I suppose, there was a bare thing to this, and I'm making a perceived judgment here, but, you know, it was 2014. It was in Planet Yoga, you know, and there was a shift in consciousness, you know, we could call it, from, you know, where your old paradigm was just completely shattered. And then, you know, it was like a moment that undescribable, undeniable, and it shifted you then into a new way of life. But before that, you know, I know you were having some real tough personal issues. So before 2014, before this sort of awakening process happened, talk about your life and what was unfolding for you at the time.
To give you an idea, since I left home at 21, I've lived in 42 different places. Wow. And that is just so unsettling. But then I've had so much experience traveling as an entertainer, seeing different parts of the world. And then I was always into the esoteric and the mystical and the out-body experiences. And then about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I studied hypnotherapy and I studied neurolinguistic programming because I wanted to understand how the mind worked. I did psychology. So I was really into the mind and how people think and how they work. And then I kind of just fell out of love with hypnosis. So everything was kind of quiet. And then I ended up watching a YouTube video, a lecture by an expert on consciousness called Tom Campbell. And I watched his videos. And as he was speaking, it's about a 3-hour video, I just thought, this is so true. It's something I've never really heard before. And his theories about the universe and why we're here without all the spiritual dogma. So I just sent an email at 2:00 in the morning, sent it over to America, not expecting anything to come back, saying, hey, would you like to come to do a seminar, an event? And I was actually living in Spain at that time when I was married. And he wrote back, said, yeah, I want to come and do it. So then I had to set a little company up and did this event. And me and a friend organised it. And there was about 64, 65 people that came, but I'd videoed it and it'd gone. It's thousands of people now that have actually seen this. So it's by Tom Campbell, My Big Toe. A toe is a theory of everything. He's been going out of his body for like 30 years in different realities, and this is all kind of new to me. He explained how the universe works, so that started the spark inside me, really. And I was pretty unhappy with my marriage for various reasons. Even though I was living in a beautiful house, swimming pool, 4 dogs, no children, 3 cars. I mean, living the dream in Spain, one of the most affluent places. But I used to get up and just be unsettled. And
unfulfilled.
Yeah. Anyway, I decided to leave and I swam away from the island, but I swam back again. And then I finally swam away again. And I met someone else and I was still in Spain. And then one day I just started shaking and I felt like somebody was breaking me in half and I felt guilt. I remember being just in this park, just crying. I felt guilt, I felt sadness, I felt fear, and my life just went wrong, basically. I lost everything. From that point onwards, to cut a long story short, I ended up staying in a place in Gibraltar, and a friend had just lent me this place. I had no money, no girlfriend, no ex-wife, no nothing. And I was just devastated. I couldn't even think straight. I just didn't know where to go. And I had a good friend called Tom and he really helped me out. I just rang him one morning and I said, Tom, I need help. And I've never asked for help. And that's an important aspect which we can come back to. But I went, I need help. And I was a mess. I was crying. I was shaking uncontrollably. And this was going on for days. And he put me in a hotel room. He gave me this thing like a horse tranquilizer and knocked me out for 18 hours. And my whole nervous system was shutting down. And dopamine levels were low. I couldn't speak. I didn't want to go out. And my friend just left me in this sort of 1-bedroom apartment in Gibraltar, just a dark room. And I just remember sitting there for weeks and not knowing where my life was going to go. I had nothing. And when you're in that situation, your reality goes down to zilch, down to nothing. And there was moments I just really wanted to end it. I was planning, how could I just end this? I'm thinking I could get Jack Daniels, a bottle of that, some tablets. And I was seriously thinking about it. Because it's not that you're a coward, it's just that you just want the pain to end.
Yeah.
And it helped me to understand and experience people's desperation. That whatever takes them to that point, I know what they feel like. And when I'm working with people, I can look at them and go, I know what you feel like. I'm not just coming out of a university with education. I've been in them shoes. Where you go, when you become depressed, your reality becomes so small that you don't even see anything else. I was there for quite a few weeks and whole loads of stuff happened. But eventually, after a few months, came back to England. I was just couch surfing, staying at friends' houses and I couldn't get a job. I went for like so many jobs. I could not get a job. I'm like, what is going on? I must have gone for about 80, 90 jobs.
Wow.
And, you know, I've been a professional video producer, you know, entertainer, photographer. I can do all this media stuff. And it's like the universe had gone, no, you're not finished yet. And it was just the worst time in my life. I can't explain it. You just like, it's almost like society doesn't exist anymore. And I remember I ended up in Scotland for some reason, and I couldn't get any income support. I couldn't get any money because I'd ended up leaving my wife. I just left with everything for €500. That was it. And I couldn't. The officer said, "Well, you can go to the soup kitchen," and I went, "God, it's so easy to fall through the cracks."
Yeah.
And I didn't have any addictions to alcohol or drugs or anything like that, so I didn't go down that road. But if I did, if I had a propensity to be mixing with the type of people that be using that, I wouldn't be in this seat now.
Yeah.
I'd either be dead or I'd be addicted to something, or, you know, so I can see how that could easily, you can go from being in the highest high to the lowest low. So that gave me another respect for how the system fails people.
Yeah.
And it's one of my drivers now to assist people. So there was points when I thought I was never going to come back. I couldn't even speak. I couldn't even picking up a coffee cup was an effort. And so, and I contacted someone, the guy, the Tom Campbell expert, the spiritual guidance person, really. I mean, and he said it's part of your ego that's breaking off. And it's the first time I looked at that idea of it's like an iceberg, and the ego was resisting.
Yeah.
That's what I was feeling, the resistance. So, and then I came to Liverpool, and I was introduced to a shaman, and he also introduced to ayahuasca, which I didn't know anything about. But as it happens, that was the turning point.
So for the listeners, can you just explain what ayahuasca is for a moment?
Ayahuasca is a combination of two plants, which is the ayahuasca and the chacruna leaves. That's the traditional way of using it. But there's other ways of creating what they still terms ayahuasca as well, using acacia. So it's a psychedelic inducing plant that was found in the Amazon, and it's a combination of these two plants. And what happens is that you've got a monoamino oxidizer in your stomach. And basically what happens is normally when you take this plant, it releases DMT, but you've got this MOA inhibitor that actually destroys the DMT before it gets into your bloodstream. So what the ayahuasca does is that there's a part of the plant that actually disables this enzyme so that the DMT, the dimethyltryptamine, which is the most powerful hallucinogenic there is, that can be absorbed into the bloodstream, and then it goes into your brain, and you go on this incredible journey, which is about opening your consciousness. And the first night I tried, nothing happened. And I was like, oh, my ego was going, this is rubbish, this is crap, why are people doing this? You know, other people in the room were just having like an amazing journey, and I'm like, this is just ridiculous. And then the second night, I was sat with 4 people. One of them was yourself. And one of the interesting things is that when I first met Martin, I looked at him and I thought, he looks familiar. He's like, and he looks like he's been in the army. I just kept getting army and thinking he looks familiar. Anyway, so we went to ayahuasca, and literally my whole head blew off. And suddenly I saw visions, and it was like I was in a waterfall of this energy. And this voice actually spoke through me, vibrated my vocal cords, and it just said, "This is a gift. This is sacred. You will be guided. This is something special." And this happened for like 4 hours. I was seeing visions. There was energy running into me. My body was shaking. My kidneys, I could feel my kidneys vibrating. And then I opened my consciousness, and I could see yourself, Martin, in the trenches, that we were in the trenches together. I could see other people in the room, what their past lives were. I could see myself in past lives. I was in Egypt, and then it showed me like this Mayan, and then it showed me Jamaican. It showed me all these different lives. It's almost like I was going back collecting all this information. The shaman said it was one of the most profound awakenings he's seen. And for me, it felt like it. and yeah, I mean, literally my life was not the same. And when people had gone out of the room, I was still in this journey. And the energy literally took me over to a mirror to look at myself for the first time without ego, without fear. And it was just beautiful. And I got an insight into what it's like when I'm at the top of the mountain. So lots of stuff happened after that. I kept, I started speaking in this voice. I started shaking. I'd wake up at 2:00 in the morning and my hand would just be going down my body to what I later would learn to be chakras, energizing. I'd be speaking Indian, fluent Indian, just stuff that was out of my normal scale of reality. And in the process, still couch surfing, still moving around. And, and then over the next couple of years, it started to formulate into different experiences and, understandings. And, I always want everything to happen now, and that's not the way this works. And then over the last, I ended up traveling quite a lot, working with someone else, doing the video work, but now the energy was triggered. So if I was in a situation where there was a certain vibration, it could be a sound, it could be an old statue, it could be something, my body would react automatically. And so it's almost like a Geiger counter. My hand just vibrates when I'm in a specific frequency. And what I didn't realize is, what I do now is that's my channel opening. And so I ended up traveling around the world, going to Taiwan, Sedona, New York, all over all the continents in a matter of like over 3 years. And even though I was filming people for someone else, the energy would kick off in the room and I'd be putting the camera down and doing work with people. So I kind of knew that that's where it needed to go. So, but it's been a real challenge for my belief systems to be able to go, because when things are happening out your normal frame of reference, there's a part you're going, I don't believe this. Is this real? What, so, it's just like your expanded consciousness suddenly opens up and then your vibration changes and then your life changes in accordance to that. So, but it's not been an easy journey.
No. And, I was there, I was on that evening, and, I'd like to just give a quick shout out to a great friend of ours, Don Roberto, who was able to facilitate such a wonderful journey for us. And he's done a lot of deep inner work with these sacred plants. And, it could be a completely new podcast on how this all came to happen. How, we all come to meet in that room over that weekend and have the experiences we did. I, for one, had a massive awakening myself, and it paved the way for a lot of integration for these upgrades, and it gave me a lot of revelations and insights and incredible inspiration for me to really move in a new direction with my life. And for anyone listening to this, I think it's important to reference that that's not always the case with ayahuasca. And even though Trev's, experience may sound, absolutely mind-blowingly, blissful, and I, for one, have also had very, very positive experiences with the medicine over a number of years. It's a medicine to be incredibly respected, and when we're talking about setting, it's a very important part of the ceremonial space and how it's held, and how you need to be held by a person or a shaman or an energy healer who is actually really knows what they're doing, so yeah, I think if anyone is interested in these journeys, I'd certainly not condone. I'm not saying that you should be doing any of this type of stuff. Really, it's under your own discretion. It's under your own responsibility. Do your research, and really, it comes from a level that it's sort of called to you, isn't it, Trev?
Yeah,
I know
it finds you.
It finds you.
Yeah, I mean, I've done 33 ayahuasca now since the first one. It was intensive. But that also opened me up to working with people. And as you mentioned before, Don Roberto I was fortunate enough to be in a space where I activated and I could start suddenly working with people and doing energy work with people and to a level that I never realized that I could work. So it was all meant to be. He was meant to do that. And since then I've connected to these higher spiritual realms, and I've been told that night was meant to be. It was an activation. The difference between an awakening and activation, I think I was already awakened to a degree, but it was just activating what was already there. And that's why it was quick for me to be able to go from like fast tracked almost. Yeah, so I was fortunate enough to have that space, but then as the more ceremonies I did, the more I just did not enjoy it, because believe me, anyone that steps into that arena of doing medicinal psychedelics, they have my respect, because it's really hard. People will be there, but you're on your own.
You've got to go through it, haven't you? It's a warrior's journey, isn't it?
It is. And I've seen the biggest men turn into balls of crying jelly. And I've seen the smallest women come out as absolute heroes. So never judge anyone by the way they look. It's who you are at a soul level, at a being level. And
the medicine's always really working in our favour, isn't it? There is no really good or bad journey. The journey is as it is. It's only maybe our perception of, firstly, what we would expect the journey to be, and secondly, how we would want it to go, rather than we have to understand that when we embark on these journeys, it's there to show us something. It's there to heal parts of our psyche, to recall parts of our experiences, childhood trauma, all of these things. And everybody's journey, but the beautiful thing about ceremony, everyone's journey is different, isn't it? However, if you're fortunate enough, you end up in the same destination, and that is, a humbled awakening of joy and love and awareness, which is boundless. And we could reference that as consciousness, which I'd like to sort of move the conversation towards in a moment. What is consciousness, and what is your perception of it and your direct experience of it? So, but yeah, having these experiences with these medicines in these ceremonial spaces has been very liberating. But as Trevor was saying here, it's not an easy journey to inevitably do some work, and it's a fast track, isn't it, Trev?
It's almost like you go to. If I was just a metaphor, as you're speaking there, I'm thinking of a metaphor. It's like getting someone who's homeless, cutting their hair, making sure they look amazing, getting all the manicure, pedicure done, putting them in a nice suit, making it like $1 million, and getting to look in the mirror and go, look, that's who you really are. Yeah. And then next minute, you're back on the street again. Right, now you've got to work for it. Yeah. And that's it. You kind of go, oh, God, I want that. And you think, well, yeah, but, you've still got to get rid of your shit. Yeah. You've still got to get rid of it.
Because people chase that spiritual high as well, don't they?
I will never do ayahuasca again. I will never do psychedelics again, because I've been told by the medicine not to do it, and I've been told by, which we can talk about later, my guides as well. So I've opened up to the fact that I really respect the medicine. I'm thankful for it. Thankfully, and I say thankfully, I never have to go into that space again. It's a tool.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because, as you were talking there and you mentioned, we are constantly in ceremony. We can reference that as the work, our experience of being human, is work, isn't it? And, instead of getting up of a morning and feeling like you've got to go to work, in your professional endeavours, really, it's about going to work with life, isn't it? And when we can use all of these modalities, whether it is yoga, whether it is meditation, whether it is, some men's work, whether it's psychedelics, whether it's energy work, whether it's these sound baths, vibrations, even sometimes, it can be all of these things, go in the gym, joining a running club. Spirituality isn't necessarily yoga, meditation, and psychedelics. Spirituality, from my perspective, spirituality means to just be totally present with what you're doing. And you could be in the middle of Tesco's, doing a shop. And if you're there, if you're fully present and you're not running a program, you're there, you're awakened, and all your emotional past, everything falls away. So I think, not that we're talking about spiritual bypassing here, because I think, there's, I think we do have to take a sincere look at ourselves, and to, a lot of our behaviour goes unexamined because we're inevitably sleepwalking. Awareness tunes out, the subconscious mind takes over, and we're going from A to B. We're walking around, we don't know what we're doing, and we're just running programs. And it's that saying, same shit, different day, and people are just doing the same things, saying the same things, thinking the same things, and behaving in these same ways. It's because they're actually not embodying presence, the art of being totally there in the moment. And so whatever you're doing, if you're totally present and you feel a level of, connection, then my perspective is that is spiritual, isn't it?
It is. And I think you have a word that means different things to different people. And love and happiness are two of them words. Like, if I say to you, do you know anyone that is happy?
I would say I was happy. You know what I mean? But, happiness, what I understand now happiness to be is a moment, is an emotion which actually comes and goes. Do you know what I mean? But please elaborate.
Well, when I met Tom Campbell, I said to him, when we talk about unhappiness and anger, and resentment, underneath all of that, if you dig long enough, there's always a fear. So if you get rid of your fear, you're not in a place of anger anymore. And I said to him, and he's 72 now, I said, when was the last time you were, you felt angry? And he goes, oh, when I was about 23. I says, when were you last fearful? Well, I was about 8.
Wow.
And the thing is, you can feel it off him. And an example, he just got this new car, a really nice Prius, and he just got it. And I'm saying, it's a lovely car. He goes, yeah, it's a really nice car. And I happened, the reason I spent quite a few weeks with him because I was producing his audio book. And we went out in this car, it's him, his wife. And, when you live with someone, you kind of look in their house, you can see them, they drop the guard. But he is who he was. And it's the little moments that you think, he's genuine, this guy.
He's authentic.
And he pulled up in this brand new car he's got, and we just gone out to get some food, and he pulled into this car park, and there was another car with a wheelchair on the back, and he didn't see it, and he scraped all down the side of his car. Now, normally, we'd be going, oh, God, cursing, and he just gets out of the car and he goes, oh, well, that's unfortunate, and, and I'm like, this guy's cool.
Yeah.
And I never saw ever he broke character. And I said, Tom, what's the answer here? He says, well, when you understand, when you get rid of your fear and your subconscious, there is no subconscious. Once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah. Then you are authentic. You are you. And even the bad stuff, there's joy in it.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing, a different perspective. So it's not like we have to attain things. It's that ability for our minds and our emotions not to be influenced by what we think is important based on our fears. And if you look at what ego is, he defines it as ego is fearness, is awareness in the service of fear. So ego is awareness in the service of fear.
Lovely.
So when that just fades away, and so you've got peace and tranquility. So if you've got, in a simplistic term, if you've got two environments, like two cities, which, like this situation now could go either way, and you've got communities now and they start building things, then you've got one that's full of fear and you've got one that's full of love, which is the opposite of fear. The one that's full of fear, every time somebody achieves something worthwhile, there's going to be jealousy. There's going to be, we want to take that. Somebody gets a really nice wife or a nice husband, we want to take that. They achieve things, we want to tear it down. And then the other one, which is love-based, it's like every time it's communal, it's collaboration. It's, oh, you've done a really good job there. And they mean it. They're not just saying it. And eventually that will thrive. And love is the dominant force in the universe. That's why things exist. If it was all fear-based, there'd be nothing. It'd be all chaos. It's all data that's been, in a chaotic, sort of dissembled, disorganized way, really.
Is it there for us to transcend it? Do you feel like it's just is this a game for us to be a part of?
What we consider as God, or what people consider as God, is consciousness. There is a consciousness system, and we are a part of that consciousness, almost like a cup of water out of the ocean. Yeah. So we are a part of that consciousness, experiencing itself, wanting to improve itself. And the way we do that is that we become aware, and we have a choice. You've got to have decision space before you can move left or right. You know, otherwise it'd be predetermined. So that decision space for us is determined by us, by the gift of free will. Mm-hmm. So we can present it with the same situation, and we can go left or right, fear or love, fear or love. And all the time you're accumulating, you're lowering, as Tom calls it, the entropy of your system. Mm. The quality of your consciousness. So your body fades away, your body dies, and you go to the next, and you come back. If you choose to come back, you come back but you come back the quality of consciousness. Mm-hmm. So that's why some people are waking up now, they're 20, 19 and 20, and they're so switched on. Yeah. Because they've done this many times before. Yeah. The reason I switched on at 46 and doing what I'm doing now is this is not my first time doing this. Yeah. So I'm just picking up from where I left off.
And you're talking about now coming back as in a level of reincarnation.
Some of the things I do with people is past life regression, and it's really useful for finding information. So what happens is that the information still stays in our system even when we pass through. Energy never ends. We're continuous, and so the information, the quality of consciousness and the work you're doing now. In the next life, you might be a woman, you might be a kid, you might come back as another man, but the work that you're doing, you'll come back and you'll just start from that. This is where you're at.
It's everlasting, isn't it, Trevor? There's consciousness is unborn, isn't it? It's undying. We try to reference it at the level of the mind, that it's this, it's that. It's infinite, it's spacious, it's loving. But the very, even when we give it a reference, I suppose we disfigure it. Consciousness just is, isn't it? I remember reading a great book by a guy called Paul Lender, I think the author, and it was creating a consciousness shift, and it really hit me that consciousness just is. It is there, and you can't deny it because you're the one having the experience. You're conscious, and there's some great teachers out there, spiritual teachers in the world, and one especially I do check him out now and then is Muji, and he talks about the isness of the moment. It just is as it is, and we've all heard of that saying, especially we've all said it many times. Oh, it is what it is, but really, do we ever embody the words and truly understand that everything just is happening? Yeah. We're just simply watching it unfold, and to not just awaken to this truth within ourselves, but to learn how to engage with it, ground in it, and embody it. And that's, self-realization is one thing, but we forget, don't we? The ego comes back in, and the fears come back in, and I suppose the work we love to do and we love to move into, especially at the level of meditation, it's constantly helping us to remember, to resolve, and to stretch this essence, for longer periods of time. So, we embody this feeling of love, this feeling that is loving, this feeling that is connected, isn't it? I, for one, come back to the many psychedelic journeys I've had, and I've got a lovely connection to psilocybin, the mushrooms. And many, 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 many times I've lost count. The one realization, the one message I seem to get more than any other message I've ever had is choose love. Choose love, and then you get the realization, and then the sort of it's funny because then the ego kicks in, doesn't it, and goes, aha, that there's the message again, because the ego's a bit of a chameleon as well, isn't it?
It's there, and you got to be aware of that ego, because there's a lot of people. I've seen people who've done 200 plant medicine ceremonies, and they're still full of ego. Yeah. I know people that are facilitating and they're still full of ego. And I know people who've got libraries full of books. They can recite chapter and verse from all these different amazing, there's a conversation about quantum physics and virtual reality and consciousness. Yeah. And yet, they could treat the wife like dog shit. Yeah. Or they could be, have substance problems. And, I go back to my teacher, Tom, he explained to me, he said, look, I met up with him in India and I said, God, I said, Tom, I've done this, I've seen this being and all these amazing experiences I've had. And he looked at me and he goes, is it useful? And he kind of stopped me in my tracks. And he said, your quality of consciousness has improved. He said, I can see it. He was looking at my energy because, whatever. He says, oh, what have you been doing? Said, well, I've seen this, I've done this. So like a kid, running back to his dad going, guess what I've done? But that isn't useful. It's right. And the ego can get attached to this spiritual journey. Oh, I can read this. I can get some purpose from that. People can look at me as a spiritual guru and suddenly I'm like, and this is where a lot of people, you see it in all over the world. You get these amazing teachers, but they just take the eye off the ball. And before they know it, they're into some sort of scandal or they haven't addressed that egoic side of them. Yeah. So the ego wants to know knowledge for the sake of it. Yeah. So sometimes the most important thing is that integrate, learn, experience, integrate.
Yeah. And that's where the magic is, isn't it? As you said before, these journeys, they show you something. It's like, the story, the reference points of the homeless man and being cleaned up and given, showing what's his potential, showing what's available to him and then being put back on the street is the, it shows you something and then you have to do the work. You've got to integrate these lessons. You have to integrate these realizations that you have and these pockets of inspiration. And then, you can't just go, back into work Monday morning and everything just, you're thinking that, it's all fine. You've got to continue. It's a lifelong journey. And, it's just really, really incredible to listen to you express, your journeys and consciousness and all this wonderful stuff. And what you're also talking about there is spirituality can become material. It gets, materialistic, doesn't it? And I suppose people use spiritual concepts, but they're really backdooring the ego. Do you know what I mean? They're strengthening the ego and it's not, we got to keep it classical. I know from my own experiences and my own growth, and when I really understood that the teachings of meditation, when we're looking at the Vedic text and the Upanishads, or the very classical teachings, and they've stood the test of time, and it's important that we do go on this journey. And you may actually take off an old mask and put a spiritual mask on. And that might not be a bad thing for a moment because there is integration, there is growth. But it's when you actually realise, I'm wearing a spiritual mask here. I need to take that one off. And to be spiritual is that sort of nakedness, isn't it? That raw, authentic self, especially, I suppose you're talking about Tom Campbell and he's unwavering and, he's probably, and what he's doing is he's actually just demonstrating to you. He's a mirror, isn't he? He's showing you what's available.
I think the greatest teachers are the ones that do it by example. Yeah. They just are. They don't have to say a word. And one of the things that I've been struggling with the last 2 years, and you probably know this because I mentioned it, is that, people do these ceremonial spaces and there's feathers everywhere and there's, there's incense burning and there's all this, all that stuff. And I've done it myself. I caught myself looking at myself while I'm holding a ceremony and I'm like dressed in white, there's incense burning. I'm like, oh, what? Now, I do it because I feel comfortable. But there's a lot of people out there thinking that they have to do these rituals, they have to dress a certain way, they have to adopt this certain tribal look and philosophies and ideologies, and they just switch from one religious belief system to a spiritual one. And in essence, none of it, I don't believe anything is sacred. And that's going to probably upset a few people, but nothing is sacred. It's all information. We have as much sovereign right as consciousness to access any information in the universe that ever has been, ever will be. And there's a respect of hierarchy. There's the respect of what people's position and what they've worked for. But I think too many people get caught up in that belief system, and they start, and if it's useful for them, that's great. But like anything else, like I said to someone recently, imagine crossing a river and, you've got a hammer there and you build a boat and you get across the river and you're still carrying the hammer 2 miles later. Yeah. You don't need it. If it's useful for you to adopt that belief system temporarily, for you to cross over the chasm and to learn something and do so, but also be aware that sometimes, or not sometimes, it's essential to be in a place of, I don't have to have this. Yeah. I can let this go. Yeah. So the ability to be able to let things go, whether it's your material possessions or your belief systems, especially belief systems, I think is really important for you to keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. And I believe this is where the integration process comes in. When we have an experience, we integrate it, then it's also having the courage and the faith to go, okay, I've integrated, I can let it go. I can let that tool go. I can let that belief system go. And because we do hold on to them, don't we? We hold on to things for longer than we are than they're needed. And until sometimes we let something go, the next lesson doesn't present itself for more growth, and for more evolution. And I'd like to just mention for a moment that I maybe what Trevor was saying there, at some level or other, that he believes everything's just information, could actually be a belief system, I believe that there is a sacredness to it, and so we're certainly open to exploring that conversation. But for me, sacred to me is a feeling of, it's a connection. It's something that I suppose isn't intellectual for me. It's a feeling. It's a tone. It's a frequency. But I suppose I would use the referenced word of sacred to initiate an understanding of maybe an experience that I was having. And that might be a bit much for anyone tuning in today, but I'm trying to explain myself there in a way that, what the sacredness means to me. But this is, I suppose, what gives us the, an understanding of it's actually relative to me, but what's relative to me might not be relative to you. And so there's relative truth and there's divine truth, isn't there? And relative truth is what's relative to you in that moment and what's true as you see in that moment. And the supreme truth of things, I suppose, is just awareness, your consciousness. And we come back to the people, you were talking about in ceremony, and, whether it is the sage or whether you are dressed in white. And I think, again, it comes back to what is our intention behind this? And it's looking back in the mirror, isn't it? And when we truly look at our intentions behind our actions, then it's guiding us to resolve something within ourselves, isn't it? It's guiding us to take a look, come home, and, we go from that separation, that, that ego, that fear, back to the one, back to this feeling of just being here, being aware.
The journey... No matter what your job is, no matter what your health is, no matter where you are now, it's about becoming love. That is it. Now, whether you realize this when you're 20 or you realize this, in your deathbed, it doesn't really matter. It's about becoming love. And everyone around you is there to show you, are you flowing with love or not? Yeah. They're all there to support your journey. So, and we get caught up in this journey. But if you look at quantum physics, nothing is determined, but it's probabilistic. And that the only thing that shifts probability is our intent. So if our intent to become love will override everything else. Yeah. And, if you look at, there's a probabilistic idea that the sun's going to rise tomorrow. There's a very high probability that it will, but it's not definite until it does. And what's happening now in our society is that the shift of consciousness will have a dramatic effect on what's going to happen over the coming months and the years, because people are waking up. So their intent has changed. So the ability, first of all, you can't have when you wake up with a positive intent and it's coming from the being level and not the ego, that's so much more powerful. And that's the intent that moves mountains, not the not the ego or the fear. So when it comes from a love base, because if you look at frequencies, which is what I kind of work with, is love is a pure frequency, the purest frequency you can get, like a laser that can cut through anything. And the fear is disorganized, crazy, anger, all over the place, you know? And that's the difference. So ultimately, everyone's journey is, whether they know it, realize it or not, that's the purpose of life. Yeah. Love or fear, that's it. Yeah. In my understanding of it.
I would certainly echo them sentiments. You know, I feel as if I've come to a situation and a place in my life where, yes, it's about embodying awareness. I could almost feel the need to say awareness, consciousness, and love and truth. It's almost the same thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? You know, it's just worded in a different way. But then we know there's love, there's unconditional love, there's conditional love, and you know it's got many dimensions to it, hasn't it? You know, how I love you because you do this for me, and I love you.
People have got the word love. I spoke about this recently. I've got the word love, and they've just misrepresented it in so many different ways. Yeah. You know, I love my dog. Okay, I love my partner. I love my life. You know, that word love. I love my new iPhone. Yeah. You know, I love myself. It's a completely different word. It's almost like you should have different words for each one. Yeah. And I think that's been a lot of problems for people to be able to go, yeah, I love my partner. Yeah, but really, do you? Yeah, of course. You know, and I think if people got down to the nitty-gritty of what love actually is to them, which is, you know, embodying all the right values and to feel compassion and love and caring and it's about other, it's not about you. Yeah. Then that's when things will step up in you as a person, in your community and globally as well. Yeah,
and I really like the way, you know, you put that there, how love has been completely you know, it's almost fragmented. And the one thing I've learned, you know, probably over the last couple of years and more so in the last year that I'm really trying to learn and embody is to not just project something, oh, I love that. It's more, I like to use the word appreciate. I appreciate what this is showing me. Do you know what I mean? So that you're always, you know, looking at it from within. I appreciate the feeling. I appreciate the lesson rather than, oh, I'm loving that. I love the way you played that tune for me, rather than I appreciate that song and the way it made me feel. Do you know what I mean? There's a different perspective there, isn't it? And I've just learned how to navigate that perspective rather than just to project, oh, I love that song, rather than I really appreciate you playing that song and how it made me feel.
As I work with frequencies, you know, everything, emotion, physicality, everything comes down to frequencies, to vibration, to energy. So if you and everything can be put into them boxes. So as you refer to something and go, well, I love that, that's one frequency. I feel gratitude for that, that's another frequency. Yeah. I hate that. You know, you look at Dr. Emoto, the Japanese scientist who used water crystals, that's referenced on YouTube. Yeah. It's the same principle behind that as well. So the frequency that you are carrying, that you are sending out, the signal that you're sending out, you know, there's prime ones like love and gratitude. The gratitude especially is healing. Yeah. You know, it's healing to your nervous system, it's healing to your immune system, it's healing to your soul.
And gratitude is that appreciation, isn't it? Yeah.
And the thing is, you can say, I dislike that person. But then you can go, and you can have venom behind it. Yeah. The energy, you can feel it. Or, yeah, I love her, I love him, he's great. Yeah. But then really feel it. Yeah. And that's the difference, because one's coming from you're verbalizing what you're thinking, the other's coming from being level because it's got energy behind it. Yeah. So I think by tapping into these energies, when you actually say things, when you actually say a word, think about what that word means to you and where's that energy coming from. That's an important way of cutting through all the traffic, all the noise.
Absolutely. And I suppose we can reference like Dr. Joe Dispenza here, you know what I mean? You know, there's intellectual thoughts, but he talks about the tone, the frequency, the feeling, you know, and you know, he he speaks about projecting, into the future, but using that imagination, mind mapping, to something, of a positive suggestion in the mind, and then to embody the feeling, because the body follows the mind, doesn't it? To embody the feeling in that present moment from that future projection. Unfortunately, everyone actually does that on a daily basis, but goes to a future projection, but goes to the worst case scenario because it's decorated from fear. But imagine a lot more people were doing it the other way. It's like when you book a holiday, you feel it, don't you? You book it's January, you book a holiday in June, July, and you're on the beach, you can feel it. You know what I mean? You've embodied it.
Well, some of the people I listen to now is I've spent so much money learning this stuff. I've done the Joe Dispenza basic course, advanced course, Switzerland, Germany. I've done seminars with Tony Robbins. I've spent hours with Tom Campbell. I've worked with Uri Geller. I've been traveling around with a guy called Jerry Sargent, does Star Magic. I've seen a lot of. And I've studied with Paul McKenna, I've studied with Richard Bandler, and I kind of sit back and I go, right, what is the common thread? I've kind of took little bits out of each one and noticed what the commonalities are. And for me, it is frequency. It is thoughts, reflect frequency. Yeah. So if you can change that code, that fundamental code of frequency, or when something happens in your life, that changes the frequency. That changes it automatically. You go through a trauma or you go through some awakening, and that changes. And your frequency is what generates your life. Mm. So your life, your reality is a direct reflection of the frequency that you're carrying. Yeah. That's not who you think you are, but the frequency you're carrying. That's why some people they strive for being these successful people, and they have success temporarily. Yeah. They'll get to the top.
All momentary, isn't it, Trev?
They'll get to 6 months, and then what happens is that the system defaults back to the frequency that they're carrying, and it'll gradually unwind. Yeah. As opposed to doing it from the frequency, and that's your foundation. Mm. So, if you're not happy with your life, then stop looking at what you're doing and start looking at what is it, why. There's something from me inside. Yeah. And that's when you start taking responsibility, the ability to respond. Absolutely. But to be able to go, actually, I can do something about this. Mm.
We have to become aware of our stuff first, though, don't we? You know what I mean? I love that. So again, it keeps coming back to meditation and being mindful and doing work on oneself. Energy work, feeling into one's frequency is that you have to inevitably become aware of the energy that you're entertaining, and the thoughts that you're entertaining. And when that happens, it gives you the opportunity then to certainly review and contemplate. But then inevitably to let it go, to change it, and when the more and more we capture ourselves in the act, we capture ourselves in these moments where our frequencies, distorted and fragmented, and we can let it go. We can, vulnerability is a word that's coming to mind here, that essence of just, just let it go, just open up again, be vulnerable, be present. And it's these mantras that I continue to embody and reaffirm within myself is, be present, let it go. It doesn't matter. There's that's another one that has come to me many, many times in many revelations I've had, is like, what, it doesn't matter, let it go, let it be, and then that level of vulnerability allows this frequency of love, because love knows what it's doing, doesn't it? Consciousness knows what it's doing. Yeah. It just is there. So there's a natural radiance from when we're authentic, when we are letting things go, when we're being with the moment, when we're being as the moment. Love knows what to do. Yeah. We don't have to do anything. We just have to settle the analytical mind. We just have to create space from, our identifications, maybe referencing Eckhart Tolle a little bit here, and come to a level of being the watcher, being aware.
There's a universal law that I noticed when I worked in seminar, when I work with people, and I just kept seeing it. And I'm like, I understand. And that is, you do need awareness first, because how can you exercise a free will unless you have awareness of the problem? Of course. And I've got so many different examples of this playing out. So it's something that I you know, when people have got that conscious awareness of it, they can go, right, now you've got a choice. Fear, go back to your patterns, or courage and love. And what happens, again, this is for people that are listening, is that usually when you make that choice of love, the same problem will come back again. It's almost like just at the last minute, just to try and present itself again to make sure that you'll have a second choice to go. Yeah, it's like, okay, so you've learned this. Oh, can we let this go now? Let's just show you. So it's like somebody going, oh, I'm definitely giving up cakes. I'm definitely giving cakes. Yeah, I've given up cakes. And then one last moment, just before they're walking out of the shop, would you like a cake? And they go, oh, go on then.
That's definitely me.
Tell me about it. But you know, it's but yeah, it's so watch out for that. That's a pattern. And
where's the fine line between actually enjoying a piece of cake?
Well, there is, if it's serving you. I mean, there's a reason why I'm giving up sugar now, and that's a definite technical reason why I'm doing it, is so I can do my work more efficiently. So you've got to have a need to do something, but you know, I don't think there's anything wrong in doing anything.
Of course.
If it's on your path, if that's where you're at, and it's about respecting other people's space and where they're at. If you see someone sticking donuts in the face all day, and it's hard not to be judgmental, but it's a case of going, well, that's fine. You know, that's
you've got to live and let live, haven't you? You know what I mean? You know. And you've got to draw upon, like, you know, some traits of discipline there, haven't you? You know, some determination, consistency, persistence, and vigilance and diligence. You know, you've got to draw upon these things and some, you know, to get shit done, basically. Do you know what I mean? And but it's, again, I've referenced this before in maybe a previous podcast, is that people just love the comfort zone, don't they, Trev? You know, they just want comfort. And there's nothing wrong with comfort to a degree, but you know, when we're really looking to evolve, and we're looking to, you know, shine our authenticity and be who we are, we have to move to a place which is just an edge, uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and the strategy that you embody for achieving these goals, I think it's important to also be able to switch that strategy, because you get a lot of successful businessmen are disciplined, they're driven. You know, they're successful is what we call successful. And yet that strategy, when they go home, the home life's falling apart. You know, so the ability to be able to switch and to not say, well, this is who I am and this is who I am all the time and be so rigid in it, is to be flexible. And you look at the Chinese philosophy, it's all about going with the flow. And so it's always catching yourself. And that's where awareness comes back in again. It's that circle of, okay, why am I doing this? Am I doing too much of this? Yeah.
Well, I love what you're talking about there, and I'd like to reference Dr. DeMartini here, because, you know, we've all got levels of discipline in our life, you know what I mean? You know, it might be like, you know, I actually love at the moment going for a run around the park, so I'm disciplined in getting up out of bed and going for a run. You know what I mean? And then I've got a high value in keeping fit, connecting to nature. So it's easy to get up and go for a run. The discipline's easy. But I have to maybe draw upon, you know, discipline when I'm doing something which isn't so aligned with my values, and I end up procrastinating and, I don't really want to do that. So, you know, the discipline's not as high, is it? And so, yeah, it's about being aware of it and being flexible with it. You know, it's not just sort of set in stone in these aspects of characteristic traits, is it?
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Wow, we could keep talking about all this stuff. You know,
there's so much stuff that's happened. I know in your life, in my life, that, you know, if we had this conversation 6 years ago when we first met, we were about two different people sat here, and 6 years from now, because it's exponential when you start growing.
Absolutely.
Which is just the same as when you start sliding down the wrong side as well. Absolutely. You've got to keep climbing all the time, but it happens quicker and quicker and quicker when you get momentum going.
I'm shifting all the time, and it's a part of my experience. I've also accepted it as part of my experience of being human, that change is it's inevitable for us all, but it's happening for me quicker. And so, you know, my life may look completely different in a year's time, and you know, I have to accept that. You know,
it's hard, isn't it?
It is hard. You know, it is really hard, because, you know, people come and go. And sometimes we romanticize the idea, especially maybe the Christian philosophy or the nuclear family, of fantasizing about having a certain way of, you know, being, and, you know, 2.4 kids and, you know, and a couple of holidays a year. And there's nothing wrong with any of that, by the way. You know, but I understand that, you know, whether this is part of my destiny, whether I've manifested it, whether I've asked for this life, I have to understand that it's happening. I accept how it unfolds. I'm moving in the direction of the things that light Martin up. You know, what do I value? And so there is a level of ego there. You know, for anyone listening today, the ego's not the bad boy here. Do you know what I mean? It's just really understanding your ego. You know, it's understanding your, you know, the acting self, the one that reacts, the one that is, you know, in a, I suppose, in a, you know, always managing risk and always looking to be seen. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, it's merging awareness. It's understanding who you are. And if you do dive into this work, you know, whatever that work looks like to you, for me, it's this life work. It's work on you, and change is inevitable, and we have to accept it, don't we, Trev?
Well, you're diving into this work because you want to change something.
Of course.
You know, you want something else to be different. And if people, first of all, follow their passion, and not the egoic drives, but what really, you know, whether creative, whether singers, whether musicians, whatever it is.
What intrinsically?
Yeah, what is it that you feel joy of? Because that's what your soul is calling for.
Yeah.
If you're unhappy about a situation, you're not following your soul's desire. That's a really good way of a good barometer, really.
Yeah.
But then you've got to move from where you are to where you want to be. And like Joe Dispenza says, you've got to be greater than your thoughts and your environment, and you've got to be greater than your programming. So that takes energy. You've got to start putting energy into it, and it's uncomfortable, but, you know, to shift yourself out of. So, and you might always find as well that what you thought was going to make you happy, when you get there, it's like, oh, I'm going to move to America. And you get to America and you go, oh, this is crap. I don't want to live here. And that happens a lot. It's happened a lot with me. And this is what I want. This is where I'm going to be. And you get there and go, okay, but what you can do, that gives you contrast. So you can go, actually, it's not where I wanted to be. Thank you for understanding that.
Yeah.
Then there's a bit of a void. And you ask people, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? I just want to be happy. So what's that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So how are you going to find your destination if you don't actually know
where you want to go and how you're going to get?
And there's a really interesting thing you can do with NLP. It's a thing where you get a piece of paper and you write your name down as quick as you can. So you get someone, write your name down on that piece of paper as quick as you can, and write it 50 times, you know, and then you time them. Or and say, okay, right, you're 1 minute, 20 seconds. Right, now get the same piece of paper, you've got to beat 1 minute, 20 seconds. And every time they beat it. Because once your mind has got a goal and it's got an intention, everything goes into that. But a lot of times people don't set a specific point in time, a specific strategy where they go, I want to be happy when? Well, actually, if you say, I want to be happy in 6 weeks, and I want to be this, I want to have that.
Being specific, innit?
The main goal is, for me, and I know for yourself, is to try and pass on the information and the tools to help people deal with inevitably what will come up in their life, which is challenges.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we both have been on a very similar journey over the last, you know, 7 or 8 years, but also a very different one. But what I really love, the fact that we've come to a place where we want to share our gifts. You know, we've come to a place of authenticity, and we want to be in the world, and we want to educate people. And I think it's about, you know, when we hold the space for people to be educated so they can understand it and apply this stuff, but also hold the space for the experiential. You know, when people are having direct experience of a lot of the work that you're offering, you know, the energy work, the meditations that you put together, you know, and when they taste that fruit, when they have the direct experience, you can't deny it, can you?
No, and it's quite frustrating for me at the moment. That's an ego thing, because I feel like a chef that's making these lovely dishes and I can't taste it. So I feel vibrations in my body, so I know that that's working. But the experiences that people are having from my, I call them meditations, but they're more energy meditations. They're having some amazing experiences, meeting beings and having these, which is why I do the work. And I was speaking to someone who's Elizabeth Rose at a very advanced channel. She's amazing. And she was saying that they shut her down. She could do all this psychic stuff, and it's not her job to be experienced in this. It's her job to bring it through, and that's, for me, it's the same.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, and I bring this meditation through, and people go, "Oh my God, that was awesome! I had this experience," and I'm sat there going, "Okay, it's cool."
Yeah.
But I was in the middle of the seesaw.
Yeah.
You kind of feel that it was good, it was on point, or it was slightly off, but ultimately, yeah.
And you talk about they, so let's maybe just spend a few minutes, before we start to wrap this up in the sort of dimensions, the galactic senses, and, what are they and who are they and what is it? And
I don't read books. I don't watch things on YouTube, or if I do, I don't pay much attention to them, because another important aspect is it's got to be your experience. I cannot teach something that's not my experience, because then I'm not being authentic. And, I could make a living. Like, I know there's lots of people that are doing it. They just read stuff, they go out and represent it, and they claim it as, this is the truth. Yeah. And it's not the way I want to work. So that's why it's been a bit slow burn for me. But I've had experiences where I've had connection with, say, higher realms of consciousness, or let's say a different stream of information, and I'm continuing to do it, and it becomes normal now. Even this week, I've learned a way of channeling now, which is really interesting. So I want to be a channel. And what that means is that you go into an altered state and the information just flows through you, which it's essentially been doing for the last couple of years. But if I work with someone individually or in a group, I can sense their energies with my hand, but I can also look at them now and start sensing. And when I say sense, is that my body starts vibrating depending to whatever frequency that they've got a blockage in. Could it be the throat, the stomach? And then sometimes when I'm working with people, the information will come through quite often, just random information, but I just try and keep out of it. And then I ask, can I rebalance this? And then the energy comes through and rebalances people. So that helps clear up their energy system, but it also, they feel lighter. Some people have profound awakenings. And I was in China a few months ago, doing some energy work there. And I like to be objective about it, because I'm always testing what I do, scientifically, just to be my own worst enemy. Is that there's a woman there, and she was the owner of this yoga studio. She's got a beautiful newborn baby, and that was being taken care of in the other room. And she didn't speak any English, and I had a translator. So I'd laid her down, and I'm just putting my hand over, and then my hand was drawn to where appendix is, round about that area, and it wouldn't move, and I could feel the energy. And as I'm focusing on it, she's looking at me, and she could feel it. And I got the information. I said, "Have you lost a baby?" And then the translator, explained in Chinese, and she looked at me, and she looked at the translator, and she went, "Yes, but I don't tell anybody I had a miscarriage." She started crying, and I tuned into the guilt and all that. And I said, "They're telling me," I say they, as in the spirit guides or the energy or whatever, "they're telling me that the baby that you lost is the baby that's in that other room, and that it tried to get through, but it couldn't quite get through."
Oh.
And that I could feel the energy come through. And she could see her face changed. And in that moment, she had an understanding, she had an awareness, and she understood that, and all the grief had gone.
Yeah, no guilt, no shame.
No guilt, no guilt. So in a few moments of interaction with the energy, and that to me is a gift to give to as many people as I can. And there's countless stories like that.
Of course, there is countless stories. I for one have known Trevor for quite some time, and witnessed his work, and witnessed other people, who've dived into the work that you've been doing, and had many, many profound, wonderful healings and awakenings. And again, you're just holding space, aren't you? Again, anyone tuning in today, our intention is to educate people. Our intention is to just have real conversations with real people, and really hold the space for the listener, you, to maybe integrate some of this stuff we've spoken about, maybe to explore some of this stuff we've spoken about, and certainly get in touch with us. Trevor is an incredibly energy healer. He's here in Liverpool. He does a lot of work online. He's released so many meditations, You know, he's available for one-to-ones. So, yeah, what else are you up to then, Trev? You know, this is a great opportunity to sell yourself.
Well, the next thing is I'm planning a retreat as soon as this happens. There's Claire Cockburn. She's amazing. Yeah, there's Bea. She's an amazing healer. And, you know, we work together quite a lot. And she carries a different frequency to me, but it's very complementary. And we've got this amazing channeler called Elizabeth Rose who's coming over, and she does full immersion. So it's for the people that really want to. It's going to be called Awaken, Evolution of the Heart.
Lovely. Wow.
And we just show up. I mean, it's already happened. We just show up, and
you trust in your abilities, you know what I mean, and that's the beauty. Well, I wish you all the best in them endeavours, you know, moving into the future. And again, people tuning in today, please check Trevor out. He's got a website, Healing Vibrations.
.co.uk. Yeah, I'm on Instagram as well as The Healing Vibrations.
Yeah. Lovely. Okay, wrapping this up then. So what a great conversation. You know, I've been really fortunate enough to actually have many conversations like this, which for me are incredibly riveting and experiential and educational. You know, I'm always learning off the likes of Trevor. You know, and I love being in the company of people like this who are just open-minded, you know, who are moving with the world and opening themselves up to new possibility and inevitably coming back to love. That's what it's all about here. You know, we out of all of this is one message is choose love, and dive into some simple practices which give you the opportunity to be a little bit or a lot more aware. And as Trev was saying, it's like the awareness is just like, it's like the key that unlocks the magic, and then you have a choice. So a beautiful conversation, Dave. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you, Martin. It's been a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed it. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I know you're very much appreciated. And it's great to see your journey as well. I'd like to finish on this, a few small verses. And when I say channel, this actually came through. So what happens is that I was doing a meditation. I grabbed a pen and paper and just wrote the words out without even reading them. And then at the end of it, I read them and I was like, wow. So I hope this connects to you. So it's come through me. It's not from me, it's through me. So it's only short, but I think it's powerful. I am the light that lights your way, the sound of the rain on a stormy day, the wash of the waves from a deep blue sea. I am all that you are, and you are all in me. I am the heart that opens wide, the tears that fall and the pain inside. A single flame that began with a spark, the brightest star in the sky that's dark. Spiraling nebulas, a silent breeze, I am present in all of these. As below, so above, I am you, and you are love.
I'm sitting here incredibly relaxed, also very grateful for this experience, for the opportunity to speak these words, and I appreciate it all, and to be able to share this with you, the listener, is just something which is so magical for me and Trevor. So thank you for tuning in today. I hope everyone has a lovely day or a lovely evening, and we'll be seeing you again pretty soon for episode 10. Bye for now. Creating Space is sponsored by the Scouse Guru app, an all-purpose meditation app that feeds into all your needs, developing peace of mind, increasing mental focus, lowering stress levels, while discovering inner stillness, awakening your potential and educating you on all matters related to human behaviour and personal development. Download the app for free on the App Store or get it on Google Play today.